brought to you by General Accident.
There is an easy way for insurance coverage today with no line in your way. All you have to say is
Genac.com. Everything you have is everything you have. So keep your assets covered and save 10% off your insurance when you renew by visiting Genac.com. You don't need to go into a branch. You can do just about everything online at genac.com. Remember, smart insurance saves. Who knows what tomorrow brings? So future-proof everything.
insurance on the go. Trust the brand that you know.
genac.com.
All you have to say is Genac.com.
General Accident Insurance Company. Future-proofing tomorrow.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM, Facebook, and YouTube live. In the first watch today, is the JPS bill increase justifiable? And in the second watch, Sundays as no movement days, implications and impact on church and society. For our social media question, we ask, how has the inability of physically meeting in the church building affected you personally? Please share your responses on our Facebook page, Love 101 FM, and also on WhatsApp, 876-997-3125, using the hashtag, The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's I quote.
This morning's I quote, human beings who are almost unique in having the ability to learn from the experiences of others are also remarkable for their apparent disinclination to do so.
Okay, that's quite a mouthful. Good morning, Ambassador Blair.
Quite so. Good morning, birthday, gentlemen.
No, no, today. It's not his day today. It's not his day today. Mine went on the weekend.
How was the birthday, my brother?
It was great, great. Really a wonderful experience, in spite of the fact that we had to be on lockdown on my birthday.
Yes, but you were in good company, I'm pretty sure.
I was. And
Yeah.
thanks for the greetings that were sent.
You're most welcome.
This media, really appreciate it.
Very well.
And happy birthday to Nadine.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Right, so I'm going to play your song, then we go to a break and come back.
All right, good.
Hey, you make me wake up in the morning. So Jesus Christ, you put me all in. You never make me run out of food. So Jesus Christ is your way alone me choose. You give me sweet joy, and when the time wrong. So Jesus Christ, you put all me trust. For all these things, yes, me I go give you glory. Jesus Christ, yes, me I go praise you. God with the swagger, yeah. God man walk out if you follow me. Hey, right then you keep on tell Satan said that him nothing bother me.
You're extra early for work today, Mike.
Yes, and I feel ready for the day. My wife gave me a nice big bowl of semola porridge this morning.
What? Productivity up today. And you know semola is Mikey's favorite breakfast. What I love is that it's easy to make and ready in just 5 minutes. And the best part, it's healthy.
Look like we should bring a few packets of the semola to work for late bug Lisa. Semola, the unbeatable breakfast porridge, distributed by Mawson Trading.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. JN Bank will help you find a way.
Here's a vaccination message from Love 101 FM. To reduce pain and discomfort where you got the shot, apply a clean, cool, wet washcloth over the area and use or exercise your arm. To reduce discomfort from fever, drink plenty of fluids, dress lightly, and take Panadol. My name is Brian Clennon from Love 101, encouraging you to get vaccinated. Let's get vaccinated and get back to life.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, come October, you may be paying more for your electricity bill. And this is based on the decision to grant JPS a 1.4% rate increase. This decision was made by the OUR following a recent review. What persons are asking, is this increase justifiable? Is it happening at the right time? Well, in this, the first half of the first watch, we have online Mrs. Elizabeth Bennett Marsh, Public Education Specialist of the OUR. Good morning, Mrs. Bennett Marsh.
Good morning, Reverend Toussaint, and good morning to your listeners. I hope I find you well.
Yes, and you?
I'm struggling to stay safe, but
yes, yes. We give God thanks for another day.
Definitely.
Yes. Well, I'm going to ask you from the get-go, Mrs. Bennett Marsh, if you could walk us through the process involved in the OUR making a final determination for a JPS rate increase.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Reverend Toussaint. Well, as your listeners may know, we regulate the three major utility sectors in Jamaica, which is electricity, and JPS is the major company in that sector. Water and sewage, we know National Water Commission is the major company there, and the telecom sector, where we have Flow and Digicel and quite a few other small telecoms operators.
Mm-hmm.
And we are an economic regulator. And as you can appreciate, Reverend Toussaint, we are also mandated to execute our functions based on the various pieces of legislation. And in this particular case, we are guided by the electricity license, which was last amended in 2016. And under the electricity license, JPS is allowed to submit every 5 years a tariff application for a 5-year period. And in between that 5-year period, they are allowed to submit an annual review application.
Mm-hmm.
And that annual review application should set out how they intend, what are their projections for performance during that 1 year that they're applying for, inflation rates, the proposed non-fuel rates on electricity, and any other information as may be necessary to support their application. So very detailed and very voluminous documents. And these non-fuel rates that they're asking for it should be justifiable in setting out how they intend to, what is the revenue requirement that they need for that 1 year to operate. And the revenue requirement, it shall be recovered through the rates. And these revenue requirements must be recovered for all prudently incurred expenses. So they have to set out what it is they intend to do for that year. Supporting documentation. We have a comprehensive review with our economists, our engineers, our analysts, etc. And we have to assess whether these are will be prudently incurred expenses, not JPS, for example, going off on its own frolic, we like this equipment, we're going to buy it in this year, etc. It has to be justifiable. And based on our detailed, and there are other components too, because they're highly technical document, they have to look at things like the Z factor, maybe a H factor, if that, but I won't bore your listeners with that.
Right.
Based on our own analysis of everything, we would have decided, okay, what will be your annual revenue target for that year? And in this case, it wasn't what they had asked for. I think they had set a revenue target of $49 billion or something like that. And we would have approved a $44.5 billion revenue target for them for the year and other components. And based on our decision, it would have resulted in an average of 1.4% increase to JPS customers. Now, this 1.4 average, and I keep emphasizing average because there are different rate classes in Rev.
Yes.
So we have your residential customers like me and you, we call them rate 10. And those customers, we will see an average of a 1.2% increase in bills. Then you have like small commercial customers, which will see a 1.5%, and then it goes up right up to large industrial type customers. So there are about 5 or 6 rate classes that we would have made decisions on in terms of movements in their electricity bills.
So when was the last JPS increase granted?
We would have made a decision as well in our 5-year. Remember, I started by talking about them being able to submit a 5-year application, which is a far more detailed process. So at the end of it, we would have made a decision on that as well. And that was in December last year.
And that was how much?
I'm trying to remember how much. So many things have happened since then, but I will tell you in a little while.
Was it 2%?
It wasn't 2% across the board. It would have been determined by the rate classes as we spoke about before.
Right. Well, from what I'm gathering though, Mrs. Bennett Marsh, a number of persons, and I'm just expressing what I've been hearing, right?
That's fine, yes.
There are those who are saying that in the midst of Jamaica experiencing a third wave of the pandemic, they regard it as unconscionable and lacking in compassion. What's your response?
Well, Reverend Toussaint, there's never a good time for increases, eh? We go to the stores every day, and one day we're able to buy.
This is the worst. This is the worst time.
Yeah, but remember now that
really bad.
So I started by outlining the mandate of the Office of Utilities Regulation. And the fact that we are abiding by the various pieces of legislation that will guide how we operate. And so it's not a decision for the OUR to make as to whether or not we would review this application at this time. And unfortunately, we can't just operate off sentimentality to say, okay, we can't do this at this time and so on. That's not our mandate at all. Our mandate is to carry out our duties as we are required to do.
Pandemic or no pandemic.
Yes.
Yes.
Unless
and there's also the observation, Mrs. Bennett Marsh, that last year the world oil prices were at their lowest in decades. Persons were expecting that they would have, the JPS would have capitalized on these lower costs and thus benefit the consumer, and thus not having to have this increase of this nature at this time. What's your take on that?
There are factors that are external to the pricing mechanism, including fuel, as you pointed out, which JPS, the cost at which they purchase it, would be a pass-through to customers. So if it is that they benefit from low oil prices during a particular period, then the customers definitely would have benefited from it. But remember as well that there are several components to the bill that you can't necessarily predict on any given month. Fuel prices is one of them. Foreign exchange rate is also one of them. And in addition to that, you have the consumption. Of course, that is to some extent within our control. So we can determine how much electricity we consume. But there are factors that would be outside of JPS's control. And if it is that they benefit from low oil prices, then definitely customers would have benefited from that.
And before we go to the break, because you'll have to leave us, I understand. When next can we be expecting an increase?
Oh, I can't say that, if we can expect an increase anytime at all, no.
I mean,
No,
for the rest of the year, I'm assuming.
well, they are due an annual. They can submit an annual application every year. It doesn't necessarily mean that in that application they will ask for an increase or that we will grant an increase. It's all dependent on what is included in the submission to the OUR.
Okay. All right. We understand you have to go. Thank you very much for joining us on this, the first half of the first watch, Mrs. Elizabeth Bennett Marsh. Have a productive day.
You are most welcome and thank you. Take care.
Listeners, we go to break.
This is Love 101 at 7:15.
JN Money Card. Send the money. More withdraw in a hurry. JN Money Card free. With your TRN and your ID. And when me no walk with cash, me just swipe like that. From abroad to card. Get the JN Money Card. It's safe, convenient, and free. JN Money Card sent from abroad. JN Money Card.
Available at JN Money locations across Jamaica. Conditions apply.
There is an easy way for insurance coverage today with no line in your way. All you have to say is
Genac.com. Everything you have is everything you have. So keep your assets covered and save 10% off your insurance when you renew by visiting Genac.com. You don't need to go into a branch. You can do just about everything online at GENAC.com. Remember, smart insurance saves. Who knows what tomorrow brings? So future-proof everything.
insurance on the go. Trust the brand that you know.
GENAC.com.
All you have to say is Genac.com.
General Accident Insurance Company. Future-proofing tomorrow.
Here's a vaccination message from Love 101 FM. What is a vaccine? A vaccine is a type of medicine that stimulates a person's immune system to produce immunity to a specific disease, protecting the person from the disease. My name is Nicola Satchel Smalling from Love 101, encouraging you to get vaccinated. Let's get vaccinated and get back to life.
Hey my peeps, get this on the regular. Your HIV status if you consider the least of a test once a year. Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Cause it might not show up on your timeline and you learn too late so you're out of time. A progressive future, mandatory, real long life our story. You hear?
Remember, update your status in a real life. Go HIV test today.
Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Real long life our story. Real long life for youth coming from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this, the first watch, we are discussing the whole matter of the JPS bill increase that was granted recently by the OUR. We're asking, is it justifiable? For the first half of this first watch, we had a while ago Mrs. Elizabeth Bennett Marsh, Public Education Specialist for the Office of Utilities Regulations. And now we have online Mr. Philip Paulwell, MP Philip Paulwell, Opposition Spokesman on Energy. Good morning, MP Paulwell.
Hi, good morning, Reverend Toussaint, to your listeners. Happy to be
Yes,
on.
good to have you on with us.
Yes.
Well, let's hit the ground running. I take it that you heard at least some of the conversation I had with Mrs. Bennett Marsh a while ago.
Yes.
What are your initial thoughts?
Well, firstly, the OUR has a distinct and defined role as the regulator for the energy sector. And because of that, there are certain specific legal requirements that they are to perform. And in this regard, they have done their work. They have received an application from the JPSCO. They have done the analysis, and they have made an award. So that's a strictly legal process, and nobody can fault them for that.
Yes.
So my issue is not with the OUR. They are performing their regulatory function. But there is another issue that arises because whilst they're is legal justification, we have to understand the reality that we live in. And even though the OUR can say you can increase by so and so, I think the company and the government, because the government does continue to have shares in the JPSCO, they can say, and this is what I've called for, given the unprecedented times that we are in, the fact that we've seen unemployment over the 18 months of COVID increase, the fact that so many people are suffering because of the ravage on the economy. All we're saying is hold strain. Do not add another layer of burden to the Jamaican consumers, and that if there are revenue targets that you are unable to meet, we are suggesting that you absorb those, because those can be made up afterwards. So for me, it's a question of conscience and reasonableness in the context of this pandemic.
What could the government really do in that regard then, in light of the economic situation we are in as a country?
Yes, well, there's always moral suasion. The fact is that the government sits as a shareholder, and the government has directors on the JPSCO board. The fact also is that JPSCO would be, because they are here, they're aware of the dire situation that we're in. They could agree to forego this increase. In the scheme of things, it's not a huge increase, but when you add it to the fact that over the last year, we've seen a 40% increase in the price of fuel for transportation. You've seen basic food items have skyrocketed. You name all of the basic foods from flour right down to chicken back, and you'd have seen the price increase taking place. And remember, we're in a context where already people are burdened by high electricity. The legitimate users of electricity, they are paying for those who steal electricity. In fact, on your bills, it's about 17%.
Wow.
And so it's about 200,000 people who do not pay for electricity now. And I did recently put forward some suggestions as to how to deal with that. But I fear that with this added increase, it could get worse. And we really don't want that.
What do you say to those who would argue that for the government to take action, as you perhaps are intimating, would be an overreach on their part? Because JPS is a business, and they are in to make profit. And I guess JPS would argue that since the start of the pandemic, they have had significant losses. How would you respond to that?
Yes, well, I don't think it is true to say that the JPSCO would have had significant losses. I think probably initially. But remember, people in Jamaica has a peculiar situation where we use more electricity when we are at home than when we're at work. Our peak demand normally comes when people are at home after 7. People have been told to stay at your yard. People have been under lockdown. Youngsters have been online classes. So the use of electricity would have grown exponentially. You just consider your own bill. You'd have seen that your usage would have increased. So I don't believe that there could be any argument that the JPSCO would have suffered during this pandemic. The use of electricity has escalated, and it has escalated exponentially. So I believe that the government, being a partner in the business, can say, let us forego this. Let us not put anything else on the back of the Jamaican consumer,
So if
because
your
they would,
party were in power now, right?
yeah.
My hearing is saying that they would have asked for this to not be implemented at this time, the increase.
Well, we had a
And
specific
what stage
proposal.
and at what stage would they suggest that it be granted?
Well, we had a specific proposal in our manifesto to provide to those consumers at the lower end a $5,000 rebate on their electricity bill during this period. And that was a solemn promise that we had made. So even if there were an increase of 1.1%, it would have been absorbed by this contribution that the government would have made had we in power. We certainly would not be introducing, or we certainly would be discouraging the JPSCO from introducing this increase at this time. I think governments do have that type of authority, especially when they are an active participant in the business itself. Remember, the government owns shares in the JPSCO, and it would not be a reckless thing to do. It would be a reasonable thing to do in the context of where we're at now, until we can get back to some level of normality, until people can have their jobs restored. I just believe that it is the wise thing to do at this time.
What other major concerns do you have in regards to the everyday running of the JPS in terms of efficiency and effectiveness?
Yes, well, we were able to take the price of electricity down significantly from about 2002, when the price was about 40 cents per kilowatt hour, US cents, to about 23 cents by 2016, but we're almost at 30 US cents per kilowatt hour. So some of the benefits of introducing liquefied natural gas as an alternative fuel, some of the things that we did in introducing solar, wind energy, and so on, we're seeing those benefits being whittled away. I think the government has now to get back on that same trajectory of utilizing greater renewable energy, and insisting that the benefits of LNG be passed on. But there are also other issues affecting the efficiency of the company. I've mentioned already the issue of electricity theft. I believe that the government can play a role in diminishing the high level of theft. I had proposed, for example, the use of the funds that have been collected under the hedge tax to provide resources to establish individual solar systems in poor homes across Jamaica. For you to generate electricity using solar, all you need is the sun. It is free. Or if the government provides the capital for you to establish the system, using
that's not going on now, Mr. MP Paulwell.
Pardon?
That's not happening now.
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, the proposal that I made has been frowned upon. The government really has not even debated it. The minister in Parliament, when he spoke in the sectoral debate, just glossed over it. But I think it was a serious contemplation. I believe, for example, we earn about 7 billion Jamaican dollars for the tax that people are paying now for energy, and it would cost us about 4 billion for 4 or 5 years. So you could easily pay in electricity. I think it's a no-brainer.
Oh, and you mentioned about tax. What's with is it the hedge fund? Is it what it was called and it's been called?
Right. So every time
because persons have said that has been around even in your time.
It was established in 2015, and the purpose of it was to have some money almost as an insurance against higher price of fuel. So what we would do is, if the price of fuel fell, you would hedge on it by putting in place a revenue base that would enable you to maximize at a lower price the purchase of fuel. We tried it once in 2015. Since that time, even though the tax has been collected, it has not been tried again. And especially
half a minute, MP Paulwell, half a minute.
Yes. So last year, when the price of oil fell below $20, we should have used the hedge fund to hedge in on that price. The price today is over $70, so we've lost that opportunity. And again, I think it is an unconscionable tax because it's not being used for the purpose for which it was developed.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us, MP Paulwell, Opposition Spokesperson on Energy. Have a productive day, sir.
Thanks. All the best to you.
Listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
Now with no processing fees and no down payment, it's time to open the door to your own sweet home. The time by JN Bank is
7:30 on the family station Love 101. Just a reminder, the Morning Watch today is brought to you by General Accident, future-proofing tomorrow. Big thanks to our friends at General Accident.
There is an easy way for insurance coverage today with no line in your way. All you have to say is
Genac.com. Everything you have is everything you have. So keep your assets covered and save 10% off your insurance when you renew by visiting Genac.com. You don't need to go into a branch. You can do just about everything online at genac.com. Remember, smart insurance saves. Who knows what tomorrow brings? So future-proof everything.
insurance on the go. Trust the brand that you know.
GENAC.com.
All you have to say is Genac.com.
General Accident Insurance Company. Future-proofing tomorrow.
Stay informed and keep up to date with all the happenings locally, regionally, and internationally. Follow My Jamaica Today on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Also check us out at JamaicaToday.com as we bring you all the information you need wherever you are, with fearless and factual reporting on politics, world news, business, entertainment, sports, and lifestyle. It's My Jamaica Today, Jamaica's first digital media house, only 3 clicks away.
DIGICEL. First in a class when you have Digicel. Schoolers Prime Bundle. That's right, with your educational website, make you bright. Head to the top of your class with your first Digicel SIM and a Schoolers Prime Bundle. Get over 142 gigabytes of data so you can have access to educational sites, social media platforms, Digicel apps, and more for as low as $1,500 for 28 days. Get the Schoolers Prime Bundle with your first Digicel SIM card. Visit the Digicel store today. DIGICEL.
The first sound they make is to simply let the world know they're here. And then it's our duty to help them show the world why they're here in the first place.
Give them every advantage with the Guardian Achiever, a plan that provides for their educational dreams and protects their health and life in the process. For more information, call 888-4LIFE to speak to an advisor or visit myguardiangroup.com.
NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
Need to pass your CSEC CAPE exams to get that dream job or to qualify for university? Then Distinction College is the school for you. We have locations in Kingston, Spanish Town, St. Elizabeth, and Ocho Rios. Start day, evening, and Saturday classes this coming term and sit CSEC CAPE exams for January's resit or May, June. Maths, law, science, English. We have the lowest school fees. Register before the end of the month and win an entire term free. Call us at 354-8560.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's take a look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. In the Gleaner, VPA observes International Peace Day today. Also, we see in the Gleaner as As civil servants, okay, 4% hike. JTA, wary of inflation. And then we also see in the Gleaner that residents, villa, clash over access to Bluefields Beach. And those of you who know that beach know how beautiful that beach is. And then, in the Observer, Canadians re-elect Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party. George Holiday, who filmed Rodney King video, dies of COVID. And then suspended Mergrove principal gets teacher support ahead of today's hearing. Those are some of the major stories in our newspapers. Have a look when you can. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our Facebook and WhatsApp question: how has the inability of physically meeting in the church building affected you personally? Please leave a comment on our Facebook page, Love 101 Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
Tune in to Love 101 FM Tuesday, September 21 at 10 a.m. to The Rock with host Pastor Harold Steve Blair and guest Stitchy for a continuation of their discussion on the question, what does the Bible say? There's a lot more to find out as to what the Bible says to Stitchy, and we want to know it all, if that's even possible. That's The Rock, Tuesday, September 21 at 10 a.m. live on our FM radio frequencies, on Facebook and YouTube, and on the app for Love 101 FM, the family station. The Rock, solid, objective, substantial.
Building wealth the smart way means you have a clear mission for your money. Specific and measurable means defining the reason for your financial goals. Achievable and realistic means keeping those goals meaningful, yet attainable. Think more retirement, less world's richest. Timely means keeping a time frame in mind so that all efforts remain focused.
Visit barita.com/opportunities for more growth coach insights.
Seniors, the next payment under the Social Pension Program starts September 20. Check your text messages to confirm how to collect yours. Not seeing a message? Call the ministry's office in your parish or 876-922-8007 or check our website at www.mlss.gov.jm. The Social Pension Program, caring for our elderly. A message from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
There are a million reasons to want to own a home.
I want more space for the children.
I am tired of paying rent.
My wife and I want an investment.
Go from future plans to keys in hand with an NCB mortgage. Get rates as low as 6.95%, 100% financing, and up to 40 years to repay. Plus, get the life insurance and home insurance you need all in one place. Visit myhome.jncb.com to get started. Conditions apply.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, as we segue into the second watch, we are facing the reality of no movement on a Sunday for at least another 5 Sundays. 5 more Sundays away from our fellow worshippers and from our place of worship. 5 more Sundays away from a religious and traditional norm that has helped to build our country in regards to our communities and our families. And so we are asking in this, the second watch, what are the implications and impact of this on church and society? And to answer these and other related questions, we have joining us online the Right Reverend Gary Harriott, moderator of the United Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. We also have joining us online Bishop Alvin Bailey, Vice President of the Jamaica Association of Evangelicals. Good morning to you, brethren.
Good morning.
Morning.
And I trust you're both doing well?
Very well, thank you.
All right. Especially under the circumstances. All right, the gentlemen, what are your opening thoughts on the fact that so many Sundays have been declared no movement days? Beginning with you, Reverend Harriet.
Well, Dylan, I want to begin by making the point that as church, we are fully cognizant of the seriousness of COVID-19. That, like many others, our families, friends, church members have been infected. We have lost some. We have buried persons who have succumbed to the virus. So we are very much aware of the seriousness of COVID-19, and that we are committed to play our part in minimizing the infection rate and hopefully to eradicate COVID from among us. We have been very much following the protocols. In fact, the church has been noted as one of the most compliant entities when it comes on to the protocol. Many of us are trying to figure out what is the rationale for making Sunday the only no movement day, and did any consultation take place with the church when this decision was being made? Dylan, while some churches have online facilities, and that has been the mode of operation since last year March, there are many of our members who really feel disenfranchised, disconnected. Many of them do not have the connectivity, and even when they do, really for them, many of them, online is not church. It's not the same thing. And when you think of the size of our buildings, I really wonder why would churches, and whether any thought was given to it, why would our churches not able to operate with more people coming out for physical worship? Last Sunday, I preached at Meadowbrook. Sunday gone, Meadowbrook United Church is our largest congregation, which has a capacity of 500, but less than 20 people were there, and they were celebrating their 67th anniversary of ministry. So I'm really concerned, and many of us are deeply concerned. Why not allow for movement on a Sunday? Yes, you can control some of the activities where you think that are more conducive for the spread of the virus, but allow for more controlled environment like the church to exist and for more people to come out to worship.
Bishop Bailey, your
Good
thoughts?
morning. Good morning to you. First of all, we must get some things correct. We are committed to truth. Still dissatisfied with the no lockdown day, but let me just make it very clear that while the lockdown day applies to the entire country, the church has been given special permission not to be locked down totally. So we can move because there is a 20-person stipulation that facilitates movement across the island for Christians going to church. And that has to be done by completing a form that has been distributed to the denominations and which to be distributed to the churches. And the church and people can really move to churches on that day, which is lockdown day. So let me just say that for the next 5 weeks, it's not a total lockdown. It is a lockdown that facilitates 20 persons going to church. And I'm still saying, along with my friend, Reverend Harriet, that the 20 is insufficient. My church, for example, that holds about 1,000. And that, on many services per Sunday would have maybe 600 and so in a service. When we have lockdown days and we allow 20 persons, our production team is about 33 persons that then can be in church. That's a waste of time for us if we're going to facilitate people in the sanctuary. And so we were heavily on the whole matter of streaming. But yes, the initial thought of lockdown did not include movement of the church. And so we had to make representation to the Prime Minister, to the government, to reconsider that position because they were significantly affected and was not able to go to church. Since then, the embargo was lifted on the church and we were allowed to move 20 persons per church for service.
These no movement Sundays, how has it affected your church or your respective congregations? Let's just hold that thought. We're going to take a break and be right back.
This is Love 101, the family station at 7:45.
There is an easy way for insurance coverage today with no line in your way. All you have to say is
Genac.com. Everything you have is everything you have. So keep your assets covered and save 10% off your insurance when you renew by visiting Genac.com. You don't need to go into a branch. You can do just about everything online at GENAC.com. Remember, smart insurance saves. Who knows what tomorrow brings? So future-proof everything.
insurance on the go. Trust the brand that you know.
GENAC.com.
All you have to say is Genac.com.
General Accident Insurance Company. Future-proofing tomorrow.
Have some issues and concerns in your community that you wish could be attended to now? Want a platform to voice those concerns? This could be the place for you. Send your 30-second voice notes describing your issue to 876-997-3125. That's 876-997-3125. Be sure to type a voice for hope before sending the voice note. Then listen on Tuesday at 9:45 a.m. for a voice for hope. Share the concerns you have seen. You know that street light that has not been working for a long time, or your community has not had water for 2 weeks now? Yes, here's somewhere you can share it. And maybe, just maybe, we can get some love on your situation. Remember now, send a 30-second voice note describing your issue and type a voice for hope before sending your voice note to 876-997-3125. A voice for hope. It's a problem, and we need a solution now. Love 101 FM, the family station, bringing a voice to your situation.
This is the soothing sound of your finances being handled by Grace Kennedy Financial Group. And this? It's actually the relaxing noise of your car and home insurance, handled by experts you can trust. Trust Grace Kennedy Financial Group to do your banking, insurance, investments, money services, and more gracefully. Get to know us at GraceKennedyFinancialGroup.com.
All right, Rev, let's go to some voice notes before we get back to the discussion. All right, let's do this.
More person could go to church, because when you're going to the bank, when you're going to the bird paper place, you go all about them, ram up and full up. And nobody not say anything, nobody not do nothing. But at the church, them depend fi lock down and go 20. I don't believe in that.
That's it, Shivani?
I think so. Let me see. There's another one. This one says, I'm a Christian, and I'm saying that the church shouldn't be affected by the lockdown. If it means that pastors not doing their duty. Or another one says, this one says, regarding the limitations on the church, why do you have 400 persons in a workplace, but the church is limited to 20? All right.
Okay.
I think I'll leave it there.
Thank you, and we thank those who responded. Well, listeners, of course, we are in the second watch, and we are discussing Sundays as no movement days, implications and impact on the church and society. We have online the Right Reverend Gary Harrier, moderator of the United Church in Jamaica and Grand Cayman, and Bishop Dr. Alvin Bailey, Vice President of Jamaica Association of Evangelicals. Dr. Reverend Bishop Bailey, before the break, I was asking the question, how has it really impacted the respective congregations that you have?
Well, I suppose by now all congregations have felt the impact and can identify ways that that this lockdown, that the restriction on a Sunday has affected every church. First and foremost, it affects the number of persons that are able to come to worship. And let me just back up by saying, worship is an integral part of the Christian expression, has always been, is, and for many decades we have been worshiping in the liberty of our own desire, style, convenience, space. And so for there to be a lockdown now, first of all, emotionally, psychologically, and just about any way that violates or in fact impedes the expression that we once exercised has affected us in many, many ways. So first of all, in terms of number. Now, what theology comes to bear, as you would have heard from some of your listeners, we are not vexed with us, we are not being in the church, we are not holy or righteous enough. And there has to be a whole new sense of theologizing in the midst of all of this for them to understand a church in exile, in the midst of a pandemic. Then there's a whole matter of us, the places where churches where we go to hear what God's saying to us. It's a response to his desire of us not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together. It's a place where we go to realize and to actualize what God is saying to us as we wait on the word of God, collectively. There are expressions of worship and fellowship. All of that is important, and we have lost. The collective empowerment of the body of Christ, for service, for ministry to the community, and to serve the community itself. All of that have been seriously impeded and affect us the way we worship. And of course, finances. We definitely have seen, a dip in the finances in the church because of that.
Reverend Harriet.
Yes, Dylan. The psychosocial and the spiritual are important aspects of the helping people to cope with this COVID-19. And when people are unable to be out and they're not able to connect online, then what you're finding is isolation or feeling of isolation and abandonment. Especially the seniors, who some of them do not have they are not savvy technologically, and therefore they really feel left out. And some of them really are complaining. For some of them, church is the only place they go. They go nowhere else. And so when they're not able to go to church, you really have now locked them down completely, or you put them out of touch with others. Some churches, and I think of ours, with this whole COVID, we have to now be looking at some of our traditions and our religious rites, how we do what we do, things that are a part of your liturgy. You have to now revisit that. Baptism, right hand of fellowship, and all those things that are integral to the life and theology of the church. We have now to be revisiting those. In terms of programs.
Dear Gary, how else will you do those things?
Well, some people have been very creative. So they use, for instance, some they set up water fountain or kind of activity for baptism for babies. Say that again?
You said water fountain?
Yes. So some people do an outside thing, with a pipe, and you walk under it and they turn it on, baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. No longer can we hold babies for blessing, or for some people call it christening or baptism. The parents have to hold the babies. So these are all kinds of things that are changing. Congregational meetings are affected because many of your members are not online. And so the whole life of the church in many aspects have been affected. And while we understand that because we're in a pandemic, but we think that there are some things that can be done. So as you hear some of those voices earlier on, when you look at the space of so many churches, when you look at the management of local churches compared to elsewhere, last week I went to a wedding at one of our hotels where it is allowed to have weddings. And I can't see why that hotel could have wedding when the church could not have it. It just really does not make sense. So I think that they really need, the leadership needs to look back at this and to see the church is so integral to our society, the formation of lives, the passing of values, the teaching of the faith, the church that is so integral, our outreach ministries, we really need to look at how we facilitate the ministry of the church in more intentional ways.
Yeah. Bishop Bailey, I want to cut to the chase now because there are those I believe, or not believe, I'm hearing, who are of the view that the extension of the No Movement Sundays boils down to a disregard for those who exercise their corporate worship on a Sunday. And that is putting it mildly. Your view?
Well, disregard has been expressed and I think has been shown by the fact that there was no consultation with the church before this is done. I am not going to say that the government doesn't know what it is doing, because there might be considerations, but we do not know what those considerations are. We don't know what are the factors taken in consideration to have decided to lock it down on a Sunday. And so it is kind of difficult to say that it was a nonsensical move to have made. But the fact that there was no consultation to facilitate worship the way that they have now given us a 20 thing is indication that there was really some disregard.
It's not an anti-Sunday business for those who worship on Sunday. It's not that.
No, it was not an anti-Sunday. As a matter of fact, it has in no way given a level of importance to the Saturday worshippers, because Saturday is an incidental. Because the Saturday is seen as a major business day with market people coming down and so on. They allow Saturday and Seventh-day Adventists and other seven-day worship persons automatically benefit from that. It was no special consideration to them. And so, the special consideration was given to us because we made representation on the matter. But I still believe that it was with due and total disregard that this has been done, because there was no consultation. Although no deliberation, because if they deliberated properly, then the decision would have been more inclusive and with due consideration to the church. And I'm still saying I'm giving them some credit, because there might be some consideration to deciding to lock down on Sunday, but I don't hear it. And in the absence of knowing what they are, in the absence of consultation and due regard, I have to conclude along with the others that it shows total disrespect for the church.
Reverend Harriet, persons are concerned about this authorization letter that has to be issued to the 20 attendees.
Yes.
They are saying it's looking sort of mark of the beast type of thing. Your take?
No, I wouldn't agree, because you have to have a way of managing. Because I'm sure that there are some people who would then be on the road saying they're going to church, but they're not really going to church.
What
So they would
authorization to go to church, Gary?
say that again.
Authorization to attend your church?
No, what I'm saying is that if you don't have a system to say these are the persons who are going to this place, then you'd have other people taking advantage of that, pretending as if they're going to this place, but they are not going. So I see it as a way of managing the numbers to make sure that people are going where they say they are going. So I don't have an issue with that, and I don't see it as any mark of the beast.
If you were the Prime Minister of Jamaica, what would you have done differently, Reverend Harriet?
Well, I would consult with the church, which is a major stakeholder in this country, and hear their views and concerns and their thoughts in terms how you manage this.
Reverend Harriet, I'm so sorry. I'm hearing about this consulting the church. Are we to take it that the church was not consulted? Because the impression is given that, the leaders in the church, leaders of umbrella bodies, have been in dialogue with the government.
I am not aware on this matter, because I have spoken with some of those who I think would be in the know, and they too are deeply concerned about this decision about locking down the country on a Sunday.
Bishop Bailey, your take?
Of course. Reverend Gary is absolutely correct. There's an organization by the name of JUGC that represents all the major denominations in this island. And this is the organization that normally consults with the government, call them for a meeting when we need one. They call us for a meeting, and whenever there is anything that necessitates the intervention, advice, permission, or dialogue with the government, this is the body that operates on behalf of 90% of Christians in the country. And we were absolutely not consulted. It was after the declaration was made publicly that we made representation to the government and Prime Minister and get a response of a 20, which is totally unacceptable and disregarded as far as I'm concerned. And I've heard it that there are people who believe that the church is in collusion with the government. We are in no collusion with the government for no lockdown whatsoever. In fact, we are aware that the pandemic is affecting everybody. Compliance is important because there are some churches, to let me say it on this station, that are totally irresponsible and are behaving.
Well, we have time. But for the record, you're saying that the umbrella body's leaders were not duly consulted in this regard.
I think we must use the program also to caution some of us to be responsible the way we conduct ourselves and not just be responsible in our speech and behavior because a pandemic is real and people are being killed.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Have a productive day. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. For information or to get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-9596-7. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Miss Kathy Gale, and our guests. I want to give a shout out to Reverend Dennis Webb and Elder Howard Johnson, who I gather are listening this morning. I'm Dylan Toussaint. Hand you back to Love in the Morning with Siobhan Blair.
And the Morning Watch is brought to you by General Accident, future-proofing tomorrow. This is Love 101 is approaching 8:01, and it's time for the program